What if the origins of human civilization's first great leap forward, its first cities, its first writing system, its first laws, lay hidden in the DNA of a long-lost people? The Sumerians, whose achievements shaped the course of history, remain one of the greatest enigmas of our ancient past. How much do we really know about them? And could their DNA hold the key to answering the questions historians and scientists have grappled with for centuries? The Sumerians weren't just another ancient civilization. They were humanity's first experiment in organized urban life, building monumental cities like Eridu and Uruk, complete with sprawling temples and advanced systems of governance. They invented cuneiform writing, an innovation that allowed their ideas, stories, and laws to be preserved for millennia. They even gave us myths and legends that influenced some of the world's most enduring religious and cultural traditions. Yet, for all their accomplishments, the Sumerians remain shrouded in mystery. Their language is a puzzle, completely unrelated to any other known tongue. Their origins are fiercely debated. Were they native to Mesopotamia, or did they come from distant lands, bringing their knowledge and innovations with them? And most intriguingly, what can modern genetics tell us about who they were and how they lived? Today, scientists and historians are using cutting-edge DNA research to try and uncover the truth about this ancient civilization. Could their genes reveal where they came from, how they interacted with neighboring peoples, or even why their civilization declined after thousands of years of success? These questions take us deep into the heart of human history, and the answers might just rewrite everything we thought we knew about the origins of civilization. So, who were the Sumerians, really? And what secrets does their DNA hold? Join us as we embark on a journey into the ancient world, unraveling one of the greatest mysteries of our time. Over 5,000 years ago, in the fertile lands between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, a remarkable civilization emerged. This was Mesopotamia, a region that many call the cradle of civilization, and at its heart was the Sumerians, the architects of humanity's first great cities and the innovators who laid the foundation for modern society. The southern plains of Mesopotamia were an unlikely place for such achievements. It was a region of extremes, where summer heat scorched the land, and unpredictable floods from the rivers made life a delicate balance of survival. But the Sumerians turned these challenges into opportunities. Using ingenuity, they developed advanced irrigation systems to control the rivers and channel their waters into the fields. This innovation transformed the arid landscape into fertile farmland, capable of sustaining large, dense populations. By 400 BCE, small farming villages had grown into bustling urban centers, and by 300 BCE, the Sumerians had built the world's first true cities, Uruk, Lagash, and Eridu. These weren't just clusters of houses, they were thriving metropolises, home to thousands of people, with temples, palaces, marketplaces, and intricate social structures. Each city was ruled by a king, and at the heart of every city was a ziggurat, a towering step pyramid dedicated to their gods, a reminder of how deeply religion shaped their lives. But perhaps their greatest achievement was the invention of writing. Around 3100 BCE, the Sumerians developed cuneiform, a script etched into clay tablets using a reed stylus. What started as a way to keep records of trade soon evolved into a powerful tool for storytelling, lawmaking, and the preservation of history. The world's first known piece of literature, the Epic of Gilgamesh, was written in this script, capturing the hopes, fears, and dreams of the Sumerian people. And yet, for all their achievements, the Sumerians remain an enigma. Their language, unlike their cities and technologies, doesn't seem to have influenced their neighbors. Linguists have scoured ancient texts for connections, but the Sumerian language stands alone, unrelated to Semitic, Indo-European, or any other linguistic group. Who were these people who seemed to emerge from nowhere, creating a civilization so advanced and yet so distinct? The Sumerians didn't just build cities, they built the blueprint for civilization itself. But their uniqueness, culturally, linguistically, and technologically, raises more questions than it answers. Where did they come from? And how did they achieve so much, so quickly? The answers, it seems, may lie not in their artifacts, but in their DNA. The Sumerians are often called the founders of civilization, but the mystery of their origins has left historians and archaeologists debating for centuries. Were they native to Mesopotamia, or did they come from distant lands, bringing their advanced knowledge with them? Over the years, several intriguing theories have emerged, each offering a different perspective on where this extraordinary people came from. The first and perhaps simplest explanation is that the Sumerians were autochthonous, meaning they were native to Mesopotamia. According to this theory, the Sumerians evolved directly from the Ubaid culture, an earlier civilization that flourished in the same region around 5000 BCE. Archaeological evidence shows a clear cultural continuity from the Ubaid period to the Sumerian era, particularly in cities like Eridu, where layers of settlement reveal uninterrupted development. Supporters of this theory point out that the Sumerians' knowledge of irrigation, agriculture, and city building fits seamlessly into the natural progression of innovations seen in Mesopotamia. If this is true, the Sumerians didn't migrate to Mesopotamia. They were already there. But others argue that the Sumerians couldn't have been native to Mesopotamia. Instead, they propose that the Sumerians were migrants who arrived from elsewhere. One popular theory suggests they came from the northeast, specifically the foothills of the Zagros Mountains or the Iranian Plateau. These areas were home to early farming communities, and their proximity to Mesopotamia makes migration plausible. The Zagros theory is supported by linguistic and cultural links to the region, as well as evidence of trade between Mesopotamia and the highlands. Another theory proposes that the Sumerians came from the southeast, possibly the Indian subcontinent, traveling by sea along the Arabian Gulf. This idea stems from the importance of lapis lazuli, a sacred blue stone central to Sumerian mythology. For over 6,000 years, lapis lazuli has been mined in the Hindu Kush Mountains, located in what is now Afghanistan. Could the Sumerians' mythology around lapis lazuli hint at their origins? Proponents of this theory suggest that the Sumerians might have migrated from South Asia, bringing their language, culture, and innovations with them. A more recent hypothesis points to the region between the Caspian Sea, the Hindu Kush, and the Kopet Mountains in modern-day Turkmenistan. This area, rich in archaeological sites, shows signs of early urbanization and trade networks that may have influenced the Sumerians. The theory ties their origins to the broader migrations and cultural exchanges that shaped the ancient world. Each of these theories attempts to solve the puzzle of the Sumerians' enigmatic language, which has no known relatives. Unlike Semitic languages like Akkadian, or Indo-European languages like Persian, Sumerian stands completely alone, a linguistic isolate. Was this language a remnant of a much older culture that disappeared? Or was it something entirely unique, developed by the Sumerians themselves? The lack of clear connections has left linguists baffled, fueling speculation about the Sumerians' origins. Adding to the complexity is the possibility that the Sumerians were not a single, homogeneous group but a mix of cultures and peoples. They may have absorbed traditions and technologies from their neighbors, blending them into something uniquely Sumerian. This idea is supported by the archaeological record, which shows evidence of cultural diffusion between the Sumerians and other groups, such as the Semites and Elamites. For now, the question of where the Sumerians came from remains unanswered. Each theory offers compelling evidence, but no single explanation fully resolves the mystery. What we do know is that their arrival in Mesopotamia, whether as natives or migrants, marked the beginning of one of the most extraordinary chapters in human history. And as we'll see, modern genetics may hold the key to finally solving this ancient puzzle. While historians and archaeologists debate the Sumerians' origins, modern genetics is beginning to offer some fascinating insights. Without direct access to Sumerian DNA, since ancient remains in Mesopotamia have been poorly preserved, scientists have turned to a population believed to have the strongest link to the Sumerians, the Marsh Arabs of southern Iraq. The Marsh Arabs, or Mardan, have lived for centuries in the wetlands between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. Their way of life, which includes building reed houses, fishing, and cultivating rice, closely resembles what we know about ancient Sumerian life. But is their connection purely cultural, or could they actually share a genetic lineage with the people who built the first cities? Recent studies of Marsh Arab DNA have revealed a compelling answer. Both the paternal and maternal genetic markers of the Marsh Arabs point to a predominantly Middle Eastern origin, with strong ties to Mesopotamia. On the Y chromosome, a significant majority of Marsh Arab men belong to haplogroup J1 page 08, a genetic branch associated with the Arabian Peninsula and southern Mesopotamia. Remarkably, this lineage expanded approximately 4,000 years ago, right in the middle of the Sumerian city-state period. This local expansion strongly suggests a connection between the Marsh Arabs and the Sumerians. The maternal side of their ancestry, traced through mitochondrial DNA, also supports this connection, though it reveals slight influences from other regions, including South Asia and Africa. These external contributions are small, highlighting the genetic isolation of the Marsh Arabs over millennia. What's particularly interesting is the absence of significant South Asian or Indian ancestry in the Marsh Arabs' genetic makeup. This finding challenges earlier theories suggesting that the Sumerians migrated from South Asia. While some South Asian traits are present in the Marsh Arabs, likely due to later trade or cultural exchanges, they represent only a tiny fraction of their overall genetic profile. This predominantly Middle Eastern ancestry points to one of two possibilities. Either the Sumerians were indigenous to southern Mesopotamia, evolving alongside the Ubaid culture, or they migrated from nearby regions like the Zagros Mountains or the Iranian Plateau. In either case, the genetic evidence reinforces the idea that the Sumerians were deeply rooted in the Fertile Crescent, rather than arriving from distant lands. But DNA reveals more than just ancestry. It also tells us about how a population lived and adapted. The Marsh Arabs' genetic diversity is surprisingly low, particularly on the paternal side. This is likely due to cultural practices such as patriarchality, where women moved to their husbands' communities, and polygamy, which concentrates genetic contributions from a smaller group of men. These traditions, combined with the Marsh Arabs' geographic isolation, have preserved genetic traits that may date back thousands of years. Another fascinating clue comes from the distribution of haplogroups within the region. While J1 page 08 dominates the Marsh Arabs, another branch, J1M267*, is more common in northern Mesopotamia and the Assyrian population. This suggests that while the Sumerians were centered in the south, they may have shared ancestry with northern groups, indicating a complex and interconnected population across ancient Mesopotamia. The genetic studies also reveal something striking. The Marsh Arabs show minimal evidence of large-scale gene flow from later migrations. For example, while the Arab conquests of the 7th century CE had a significant cultural impact on the region, they appear to have left only a small genetic imprint on the Marsh Arabs. This isolation strengthens the case for their direct link to ancient populations like the Sumerians. So, what does this all mean for the mystery of the Sumerians? While we may not have direct DNA from Sumerian remains, the genetic data from the Marsh Arabs strongly suggests that the Sumerians were a local population, deeply connected to Mesopotamia's cultural and genetic landscape. Their contributions to human history weren't the result of a distant migration, but rather the culmination of local innovation and adaptation in one of the most fertile and challenging environments on Earth. As we continue to uncover more genetic data, these findings could reshape our understanding of how civilizations emerged and flourished in the ancient world. But even now, one thing is clear. The Marsh Arabs aren't just guardians of a cultural legacy. They may well be living descendants of one of the most influential civilizations in human history. For all the breakthroughs modern genetics has given us, when it comes to ancient civilizations like the Sumerians, we're still up against significant challenges. The biggest obstacle? A lack of direct DNA samples from the Sumerians themselves. The hot and humid climate of southern Mesopotamia is one of the least hospitable environments for preserving ancient remains. Over thousands of years, human bones and other biological material degrade rapidly in such conditions, leaving little behind for modern scientists to study. Unlike the frozen remains found in Siberia or the well-preserved mummies of Egypt, the remains of ancient Mesopotamians are often little more than fragments by the time archaeologists unearth them. Adding to the difficulty is the fact that many early excavations of Sumerian sites, like those in Ur and Eridu, were conducted using outdated techniques. Human remains were frequently overlooked, poorly stored, or even discarded, as researchers focused on artifacts like pottery and tablets. These early oversights mean that much of the genetic material we might have studied has already been lost. Even when remains are found, contamination can be a serious problem. Ancient bones are often exposed to modern human DNA during excavation or handling, making it challenging to isolate authentic ancient samples. Advances in technology have made it possible to screen for contamination, but the process remains time-consuming and expensive. Despite these challenges, there is hope. New methods of DNA extraction and sequencing are making it easier to recover genetic material from even the most degraded samples. Techniques like shotgun sequencing allow researchers to sift through tiny fragments of DNA and piece together a more complete picture. These innovations have already yielded incredible insights into other ancient populations, like the Neanderthals and the Denisovans. But for now, scientists rely on indirect evidence, like the DNA of the Marsh Arabs and other populations in the region, to fill in the gaps. While this approach provides valuable clues, it's not a substitute for direct evidence. The ultimate breakthrough would come from successfully extracting DNA from ancient Sumerian remains, something researchers hope might still be possible with improved techniques. The Sumerian story isn't just a tale of what they accomplished in life, it's also about what their remains can tell us now. With every new discovery, we get closer to solving the mystery of who they were, where they came from, and how they shaped the course of human history. The challenge is enormous, but so is the reward, unlocking the secrets of the world's first great civilization. Why does unraveling the mystery of Sumerian DNA matter? It's not just about solving an ancient puzzle, it's about understanding the origins of civilization itself. The Sumerians didn't simply leave behind cities and writing. They set in motion ideas and systems that continue to shape the world today. By studying their DNA, we can uncover crucial insights into how civilizations rise, evolve, and endure. One of the biggest reasons this mystery is important is because it could redefine how we view human migration and cultural exchange in the ancient world. The Sumerians lived at a crossroads, in the Fertile Crescent, a region where cultures collided, traded, and sometimes blended. If we can pinpoint their genetic origins, we might also learn more about the movements of other ancient peoples, like the Semitic-speaking Akkadians or the mysterious Elamites. Did these groups interact and share ideas? Or were their cultures distinct and isolated, separated by genetic and linguistic boundaries? DNA could also help answer broader questions about how early societies adapted to their environments. For instance, the Sumerians lived in one of the harshest environments of the ancient world. Their mastery of irrigation turned swamps into farmland and made life possible in a region prone to droughts and flooding. By studying their genetic makeup, we might discover adaptations that helped them thrive in such conditions, adaptations that could reveal new aspects of human resilience and ingenuity. But perhaps most fascinating of all is the potential to learn more about how the Sumerians influenced the cultures that followed them. Their innovations didn't vanish when their civilization declined. They were absorbed and adapted by other groups, including the Babylonians and Assyrians. Could genetic studies show us how populations merged or shifted after the Sumerian period? And could we find traces of their legacy not just in Mesopotamia, but in other parts of the ancient world? Finally, there's a deeper, philosophical reason why the Sumerian DNA mystery matters. The Sumerians represent the dawn of human civilization, a time when humanity took its first steps toward the complex societies we live in today. Understanding who they were isn't just a question of historical curiosity. It's a way of exploring how we, as a species, began to define ourselves. What drove them to create cities, invent writing, and build monuments to the gods? What can their story teach us about our own origins, and about the forces that drive innovation and progress? The study of Sumerian DNA has the power to reshape our understanding of the ancient world and provide a clearer picture of how civilization began. And as we uncover more, we're reminded that the Sumerians' greatest legacy isn't just their cities or their writing. It's the enduring mystery of who they were and how their story connects to ours. Despite everything we've learned, the mystery of the Sumerians is far from solved. In fact, every new discovery seems to raise even more questions. Where did their unique language come from? Were they truly a distinct, isolated people? Or were they part of a larger web of ancient migrations and cultural exchanges? And most intriguingly, what secrets could their DNA still hold? One of the biggest challenges in solving these mysteries is the lack of direct genetic evidence. So far, most of what we know comes from studying modern populations like the Marsh Arabs, but what we really need is ancient DNA from Sumerian remains. Advances in technology are making this possibility more realistic than ever before. Techniques like metagenomics and shotgun sequencing are allowing scientists to recover even the tiniest fragments of DNA from ancient bones. With these tools, it might one day be possible to extract genetic material from the Sumerian skeletons unearthed at sites like Ur and Eridu. If we could obtain this ancient DNA, the possibilities would be groundbreaking. We could compare it directly with modern populations to confirm or challenge the Marsh Arab connection. We could also trace genetic links to other regions, like the Zagros Mountains or even the distant Hindu Kush, to see if there's evidence for migration theories. And we might uncover genetic adaptations that helped the Sumerians survive in their harsh environment, shedding new light on their daily lives. But genetics is only part of the puzzle. Archaeologists continue to uncover new evidence from ancient Mesopotamian sites, and every artifact tells us something about how the Sumerians lived, worshipped, and governed. For example, ongoing excavations at Eridu, considered the oldest city in the world, could reveal more about the transition from the Ubaid culture to the Sumerian era. Similarly, studying trade goods and cultural artifacts could help us understand how the Sumerians interacted with their neighbors. Another exciting frontier is linguistics. While the Sumerian language remains an isolate, advances in computational linguistics might help us analyze its structure in new ways. Could there be hidden connections between Sumerian and other ancient languages that we've missed? Or is Sumerian truly a remnant of an older, lost linguistic world? And then there's the possibility of future discoveries in unexpected places. Ancient Mesopotamia was a center of trade, and Sumerian artifacts have been found far from their homeland, in places like Anatolia and the Indus Valley. What if traces of their DNA or culture turn up in these regions as well? Each new piece of evidence has the potential to reshape our understanding of who the Sumerians were and how they fit into the larger story of human history. Ultimately, the Sumerian mystery isn't just about their origins or their DNA. It's about the very nature of civilization itself. How did humans go from small farming communities to building monumental cities and creating complex societies? The Sumerians were the first to take this leap, and by studying their story, we're also uncovering the roots of our own. While we may not have all the answers yet, the search continues. With every new discovery, we get one step closer to understanding the Sumerians, and through them, the origins of human civilization. The story of the Sumerians is one of humanity's most enduring mysteries. They were the first to build cities, to write, and to create the foundations of law and governance that still influence us today. Their innovations in science, religion, and art shaped the course of history. Yet their own story remains tantalizingly incomplete. Even with all we've uncovered about the Sumerians, their DNA, language, and origins continue to spark debates and inspire new research. Were they a local people who rose from the fertile lands of southern Mesopotamia? Or were they migrants who brought their advanced knowledge from distant lands? Their influence is undeniable, but the deeper questions of who they truly were remain open, waiting for the next breakthrough in science or archaeology to provide answers. What makes the Sumerians so captivating is not just what they achieved, but how their story mirrors our own. They faced challenges, adapted, and created something extraordinary. Much like every civilization that followed them, their cities may have crumbled, and their language may have disappeared, but their legacy lives on in the very foundations of human society. As we continue to uncover new evidence, one thing is clear. The Sumerians didn't just give us civilization, they gave us a sense of curiosity about our origins and the drive to keep asking questions about the past. And perhaps that's their greatest gift of all. So, what do you think? Will the mystery of Sumerian DNA ever be solved? Could their story hold even more surprises about the origins of civilization? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear your theories. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more deep dives into the mysteries of history and the ancient world.